Who said that?
Robert E. Lee.
Robert E. Lee is the answer. Thank you. Thank you. But as I read my Facebook posts, sometimes our people, their people, all the people forget that idea, right? It's easy to do at 2 o'clock in the morning when you've read some pedantic moron say something that's just totally off the wall. But I want to suggest to you a few things that might be helpful. And first thing is to recognize that all of us here are weirdos, right? Most people are out with their kids or watching some, bunch of grown men wearing tights playing a game or something. They're doing something different from politics, almost always. And so the number of people that have an impact on political things is always very small. It's always very small. And it's more fun to come to something like this than it is a boring city council meeting. And I have to tell you that as much fun as these things are, and they're important, you need to know who your city council people are, because those are people that make these decisions. So whenever you're having these discussions with people, I would like for you to I'm just going to suggest to you that you're more successful if you focus on your goal. On your goal. What is your goal? Your goal is to make a point that furthers the direction you want to go. In this case, it was about the statue. So the statues be taken down. I'm going to use an analogy, and I hope it doesn't offend anybody. If I were a missionary hoping to convert an atheist, would I be very successful if I said, read this New Testament, you moron, or you're going to hell? I probably would not be very successful if I were a missionary and I took that tact. And yet I see that same tact taken by our people and their people. It's not civil discourse. So when you're talking to somebody, and there's so many people in this conversation that want to impute, they want to say, I know the way you think. You are secretly a racist. And I know all about the way you think, even though they don't know you, they don't know your background, they don't have any idea what you think, but they know what you think. When you're talking to somebody like that, I would suggest to you that you either shut down the conversation or you have to ask, is it possible that you don't know what I think? You have to cut to that. If they think that they know what you think no matter what you think, then you can stop talking to them. They already know the conversation, right? So don't do that. Focus on the goal. When I talk to people, the surest way, even people who disagree with whether the statue should be there, and almost everybody says, no, we should not spend $500,000 to move a statue. That could be used for the pensions that are short or streets that are short. There are a million ways to better spend $500,000. If the issue is about funding for maintenance, then we can put together a 501c3 to take care of that maintenance. That's not an issue. And people will try to get real complicated about who should do what. There is a very real problem with old cemeteries that have a lot of old people in them that died a long time ago, and then somebody has to take care of the cemeteries, and they wind up being in the public, and then you have to figure out, well, do we want to continue with this or not? There's lots of issues like that, but you don't have to talk about that. You can, whenever they start talking about, well, we shouldn't have public money, then you just back right up and say, sure, is it okay with you if we establish a 501c3 nonprofit and take care of that? And if they say, no, I don't want that, and so the problem is not your money. The problem is not that it's on public land. You have to understand what they're thinking about. This is not lawyer talk. This is just sales 101. Whenever you're talking to somebody, ask them what's important to them. If the issue is, well, and this is the problem, you will find people will have, I have a sad story because I was beat when I was young, therefore I'm very sensitive to whatever it is. And the way you respond to that is you have to acknowledge, I understand you have an issue here. Then you can't use the word but. If you say the word but, you lose them, okay? I understand that you are sensitive to this issue. Does that mean that the entire world should change its direction for you when you understand that you have this certain sensitivity? Because that's what they're asking us to do, right? That's what we're saying. We need to go around, we need to change all these things because I've suddenly in the last 3 months developed an allergy to all things statues if they have anything to do with Confederacy. This is a brand new thing, right? Nobody knew about this until 3 months ago. And so what we have to do is we have to say, is this the way you make peace? Is this the way you make racial reconciliation, which is what some people want to make it about? Is is that brand new, this idea that we should stamp down and destroy everybody that who's ever lost in a war. We should take down every statue that honors every regional leader. No, we don't do that. I went to the Colosseum. I had the opportunity to go to the Colosseum a few years ago. Everybody knows the Colosseum is, right? Rome. They killed Christians there. It's my people. They killed a lot of people there. Should we tear that down? No. Why do we leave that up? We leave it up because we don't fear that. We don't fear the Colosseum. There's no Christians being killed there anymore. So some people will say, well, the statues are still racial reminders of things that are not all that past. And then I have to go back to, well, how did Lincoln look at that? And how did Grant look at that? They were the victors of that war. The snowflakes that are running these debates right now are not the victors of the Civil War more than 100 years ago, right? So no one was prosecuted for treason back then. No one. And they'll say, well, now they may have thought that they were traitors, but they weren't prosecuted. Why is that? Because that's how you bring peace. You recognize the other side had a thing to say. You had a fight about it. Now we're done fighting. Lee had that view on things. He said, I'm not going to listen to people talk bad about Grant. Grant treated me fairly. When Lee and his officers left, they left with their weapons and their horses. They left with their honor intact. There was I forgot the name of the guy. I'm not a Civil War buff, really. But at the General Chamberlain of the North saluted the defeated troops under General Gordon. Okay? A leader of the North saluted the troops that were defeated. Why did he do that? Because he was respecting the fact that those were his brothers. We'd had a little internecine fight, and it was a big deal. You know, we lost a lot of people on both sides. But the fight was over. And the way to peace is forgiveness. And this is not this is not limited to just the Civil War. We saw this in World War I, 1914-15, the Christmas truce. You had the Germans and the Brits and the French actually stopping the war to enjoy Christmas with each other. You can't imagine doing that today in today's wars. But until relatively recently, that was the way war was conducted quite often. Also this is my favorite example. In World War I, Red Baron, a real person, flying, he was a German ace, and he shot down 60, 70 Allied pilots. He was eventually shot down, and he was captured by the Allied pilots. They buried him with full military honors. Okay, the German pilot shot down by the Allies was buried by the Allies with full military honors, just like he was one of their own. Why was that? Because back then, people had an understanding that your foe could be your foe and still be honorable. And you could recognize that honor without giving up anything of your own. You do not lose honor by recognizing and respecting your enemy, whether in victory or in defeat. It's an important part of our background. Now, I'll tell you that, I already mentioned this one time, if you don't know the name of your city council person that represents your area right now, then you're part of the problem. Okay? I know it is much more fun to go to these things, but there are people that work for decades on city council issues, and they never get any success because they never have enough support when it comes time to do the hard things. You'll have a budget hearing. 2 people out of a city of 800,000 people will show up. 2 or 3. It should be a full room. They're setting tax rates. They're trying to figure out how they're going to spend your money. It is so incredibly boring. But it is the stuff of democracy in a local area. I know we're a republic, but we talk that way, though. It's okay. So, what else can I tell you? As we know, you'll hear people talk about, and they'll say, well, these are all passive-aggressive rebellions. These statutes are passive-aggressive rebellions to the civil rights era. There may be some of those. I don't know. I don't know which ones are, which ones are not. But I know this one was put up in, 1936? And who unveiled it? FDR. whenever you're talking to these people, it's okay to say, was FDR a secret Klansman? Is that what you think? Really? Was he trying to honor the Confederacy? Was he secretly hoping the South would rise again? No, it's absurd. It's absurd. FDR was honoring a regional hero, and that's just what we do here. It's okay. Some people honor some areas more than others, and some heroes more than others. And what you do is you say, let them do their thing and have their heroes. There's nothing wrong with that. The other thing I like is whenever I see, well, this hurts my feelings, therefore we should take it down. I want to know if we're going to say that this is a race issue, who gets to vote on it? Do only the minorities who feel like they're losing something get to vote on it, or do we all get to vote on it, or only the minorities who feel a certain way get to vote on it? It's absurd. You don't let people do what's we call the heckler's veto. You remember what the heckler's veto is? Heckler's veto, you see this in all the college campuses. A conservative shows up to speak, and all the snowflakes show up, and they yell and scream until he has to go home. We call that the heckler's veto, because you heckle somebody until he has to go home. This statue issue is kind of an aggressive, on the offense, heckler's veto. We don't want you to even be able to say what you say. And they say, well, you don't teach history through statues. Well, we've only done that for about the last 6,000 years, I guess. We've been doing that since before we had books. We've been teaching the history of statues. You go to Agamemnon's palace in Greece, what does he have? He has statues telling the stories. What do you see on the Acropolis? You see the mythological tales told in statues. Yes, we do teach things in statues. And who tears statues down, by the way? ISIS. Now, I'm not going to call names, but do you want, if I were talking to the mayor right now, I'd say, do you really want to be known as Mayor ISIS? Really? Is this what you want to be known for? My Lord, what is this about that you think that this is a good use of taxpayer dollars? And that's really what got me about this. And I hope, and I've already said it once, I hope you say it again. Ask people who are in the middle on this how much money we should spend. And when people, and I've had this conversation with a couple of people, and they'll say, well, down in Austin, you spend a lot of money challenging the federal government on this, and it's a big waste of money. I said, oh, so is the theory that if some people waste some money on some things, we can just blow all the money on everything? Is that it? It's absurd. I want to leave you with a poem. It's a poem. And it's one of the most motivating poems I've ever personally heard. And it's a tale of a fellow who was a pagan back in Rome, 500 BC. 500 BC, and an Etruscan army is about to attack Rome. This is a true story, although I'm sure it's embellished in some ways. And there's a narrow bridge that connects, that goes over the Tiber River to Rome. The Etruscan army is going to attack, and this bridge has to be destroyed. And there's a fellow named Horatius. Horatius and his he's the captain of the guard. He takes 2 volunteers, and he goes to the front of the bridge on the one side to kind of stand off the offense of the Etruscan army with a couple of his buddies, while his fellow Romans are destroying the bridge. This is not throwing yourself on a grenade. This is saying, I'm going to go die so the rest of you guys can make your escape and protect the whole city. It's a great, and you hear this from time to time. And he says, how can a man die better than facing fearful odds for the ashes of his fathers and the temples of his gods? It's a great poem. I get goosebumps every time I read it. Now, do I decide that that's no good because he's a pagan and because he worshiped gods and his people crucified and destroyed my people 2,000 years ago? No, I don't. I still listen to those words, and they still stir my heart. Nobody's asking you to go to the other side of the bridge and potentially die today. All we're asking is that you get involved, stay involved over a long period of time. The standard kind of half-life for an activist in politics is about 10 years. You get tired and you go off and do other things. Sometimes you make some babies, you got to raise some kids, and we go in and out of politics. Everybody does that. And so if you got to take a break from time to time, take a break. But when it comes time to vote, and I'll say this: I'm a precinct chair in a political party. I won't say which one, but you maybe guess. And for people like me, small wheels in the machine, when we hear people say, "I'm a good voter," it's pretty common for us to look up and say, "Oh, they're a good voter. They vote in every presidential election, and they call themselves a good voter." I understand that people are busy, but you need to understand that if you vote every 4 years in a presidential election, you are voting in the least effective election that you can vote in and give the least amount of impact that you will ever have. You are a product of the system, a product at the very end. You are a deliverable to political systems if that's when you start to participate. Now, some people will say, "Well, I don't know who I'm supposed to vote for." You know, when you don't know what auto mechanic to go to, what do? You ask your friends that you trust. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm an attorney. I know a lot of the judges personally. But if somebody says, who's a good person to vote for in probate court 3 in Dallas, I don't know. I call a friend that I trust, just like I do for an auto mechanic or a dentist or anything else. Find people you trust and vote in every election. Unless you are starting to get mail from all the players in every election, you are not a player. You're not part of the system. You're just a deliverable. You have to get involved in the primaries, and you have to assist people. Everybody can do a little thing, whether it's $10 or walk a block or be a precinct chair. You have to get involved. I can tell you that a city council fears you the most the very first time that you show up to speak to a city council meeting. That's the first time they care. So, if they have never seen you at a city council meeting, why should they care what you think? It's important that you do that. So, I appreciate your time, and if I can help any way, get involved, be on Facebook, get involved, talk to people, maintain patience when you're talking to people. I saw somebody riding around with a T-shirt that says, "I can explain it to you, but I can't understand it for you," right? Whenever you run into somebody like that, just ask them what's important to them and talk to them about what's important to them. If you're wasting your time, just remember if people are watching you, and here's my pet one, and I'll stop. Please don't say "you're stupid" and use the wrong "you're." Okay? It just drives me nuts. Now I know that I write for a living, and so I am more sensitive to this than most people. Okay, so it hurts my eyes. Don't do that, and it makes us all look bad. If it's worth writing, it's worth spelling right. Should it matter? No, it shouldn't. It shouldn't matter. But it does to the efficiency of what you're trying to do. If you're trying to communicate a message and you fail, then it's your failure. It's not the listener's failure. You failed. So take time to do things right. Feel free to pull in authorities and get other people involved in a discussion that's worth having. This is real. It's right now. And we need to take our time to talk to people and do so in a patient way so the other people who are watching the conversation walk off from the conversation. We're saying, that person was reasonable and this person was not. Okay? That's what your goal is. Thank you.
It's really funny that he says that because some of the folks that I've run into on his page, I just call them, "I can't talk to you. You're a bonehead." And I walk away, and it's funny because he will take the time and logically try to describe where they're going wrong. And I look at him and go, I just don't even understand how to communicate with someone like you. I just didn't grow up with someone like you. So I don't understand it. There is a young lady that I met online. I have not met her in person yet, but she has some unusual views, and I would like to invite her up. Is she on her way? Yvette? Yes, ma'am. Yvette, she came to me and she said, I want to talk about a couple of things. And I thought, I better get her on the phone first to make sure that I can, communicate with her and that she'll be able to communicate with the folks out there. And she said, I've been known for my good communication skills as a speaker. And then I thought she wanted to mention something that's important, but kind of a side note to this event. And then when she explained it, and she explained the the tie-in, I just went, oh gosh, this is cool. I want to welcome Yvette to the stage. Thank you. Belize. I'm sorry, I'm asking. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you, everybody that came out here to support Texas history. Well, my name is Yvette Balizay, and first I want to start off by letting everybody know. When I was in high school, I went to Robert E. Lee High School in Baytown, Texas. And we at Lee High School were very proud to say we were from Lee High School. We were very competitive, and we were the best at everything we did in sports and whatnot at the time that I was there. So we can't erase our Texas history. You're not going to erase my high school memories. And so I'm going to start off with that. And that's what got my attention with this in the first place. So my mother, she's an immigrant when she came here. Now she's a citizen. But she also graduated from Robert E. Lee High School. And she's very proud of that. So, like I said, we're not going to be able to just erase Texas history. We're not going to be able to erase people's memories. It's very ingrained in our culture in Texas. All right. So what Robert was saying is a unique tie-in that we can have here that I thought was interesting. I am, if y'all don't know, I am a full-time activist to legalize cannabis in Texas. And I have been a full-time activist for 10 years. And one of the hardest things with legalizing cannabis is making people recognize the history that people have tried to deny with cannabis and how cannabis has helped shape this state and our nation. So, history proves during the U.S. Civil War, cannabis was widely used by soldiers for ailments and wounds. History proves some of our veterans from the Civil War to now need and deserve weed. Robert E. Lee and Ulysses S. Grant used and promoted weed during the Civil War. When referring to cannabis, our great general Robert E. Lee said, quote, "I wish it were in my power to place a dollar box of the hashish candy in the pocket of every Confederate soldier, because I am convinced that it speedily relieves debility, fatigue, and suffering." That came from General Robert E. Lee, and we're not going to erase that history. Our great General Ulysses S. Grant said that cannabis is, quote, "of great value for the wounded and feeble, and it is harmless." General McClellan writes, quote, "I and my wife have used 2 boxes of the hashish candy and have been benefited by its use." Governor Shannon of Kansas said, quote, "Hashish candy cured him of an old disease that other remedies could not remove." These facts come from the Good Samaritan and Daily Physician circa 1862. So, again, the reason why I'm here today is because I will not allow my country's history to be erased, nor will I allow for my country's veterans to be disgraced. So, what I want to point out is the ignorance to immediately remove a statue here has wasted $500,000 of our tax dollars that could have gone to schools, food, our veterans, and maybe some hurricane relief. So, if we cannot at least take care of our vets, we can honor our vets and remember our vets. I want to make another note that 1 in 4 of the homeless people here in Dallas are veterans. So I thank everyone who came out today to stand out for what's right. We must preserve Texas history in a building or a museum where everyone can see and learn and remember. Historical ignorance created cannabis prohibition. The result today is putting our soldiers, our veterans, in cages because they need cannabis and they use it to heal. Some of our veterans need weed, veterans from the Civil War to now. So please listen to the history. Please listen to all the spirits of our great generals everywhere who shaped this nation. I will not allow my country's history to be erased, nor will I allow for my country's veterans to be disgraced. Thank you, Yvette Balizay. I appreciate you.
when I heard that, I thought, you know, I have a friend, one of our unit members is currently undergoing treatment for chemotherapy. And there have been so many people that have come out and asked if we could find a way to help her that's non-traditional. And you have to look at the facts and the background and the history. No, I don't smoke. I haven't done it in a long time. It takes me every bit of acumen that I could possibly muster just to live through my day. But for those who do, not necessarily, you know, it's hard for me because I'm an owner of a business, so there's a liability to me. But the medicinal attributes of this, I think, are worth looking at. And it's a shame that folks aren't more open-minded about it. There's a gentleman that I'd like to introduce next. He's also a person from the black community. His name is Jimmy Myers. Jeffrey. I told him I'd massacre him. I apologize. Come on up, Jeffrey. Jeffrey has a perspective. And this is what we hope to do more of. And I told him just now on the ground, I said, we're not done here. This isn't we don't just flag wave. That command center, we didn't make that just so it would be a prop for you to like. Okay? We've spent a lot of time, a lot of money, and we're growing. But not as militia or soldiers or veterans. We're growing as patriots. And we're hoping that more join our cause, regardless of what your physical age is or where some of your political views are. If you're proud of the state of Texas, we welcome you. Yeah. Sir, pleasure. Here's Mr.
I first like to I'd first like to give thanks to my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. I'd like to have a conversation right now with the African American community. This monument is gone, but the truth remains. Yes, the monument is no more but the truth, the undeniable truth, the historic record remains intact. The truth is unassailable. The truth is more powerful than a jackhammer. The truth is more massive than any crane can lift. The truth endures the winds, the rain, the heat, the cold. The truth endures the sands of time. The truth is, this monument, like so many others, was devoted to a member of the Democrat Party. The relic is gone, but the fact that the Democrat Party was the party of slavery remains. This artifact has been removed, but the fact that the Democrat Party was the party of lynching endures. Black politicians give their loyalty and devotion, and even money, to the party to champion the enslavement of their own elders. How misguided can you be? Politicians can remove artifacts and relics, but they can't remove the reality that the Democrat Party is the party of racism and segregation. Black politicians ran about the KKK while being servants of the party that spawned the KKK. Removing monuments will not erase the fact that the Democrat Party elevated a Grand Cleveland and an exalted oracle of the Ku Klux Klan to its highest ranks in the United States Senate. Black politicians, celebrities, and activists rail against racism and bigotry, yet give their loyalty to the party whose members voted against the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments, respectively. The removal of monuments will serve as a permanent reminder of the injustices and suffering wrought upon the black community by the Democrat Party. The place where this monument once stood is now empty and void. This perfectly symbolizes the decades of empty and broken promises made by the Democrat Party to the African American community. The removal of monuments will remind the public that it was a Democrat governor who barred the door to African American students at the University of Alabama. Removing monuments won't change the fact that the Democrat Party is the party of poll taxes and literacy tests, measures intended to suppress the black vote. The removal of this monument is a cowardly attempt to hide the past. Instead, we are provided with a teachable moment. Efforts to hide the past serve only to illuminate the fact that the Democrat Party is the party of Jim Crow laws and segregation. Removing monuments won't undo the fact that Democrats work hard to block the passage of the 1964 Voting Rights Act. The removal of monuments serves as a permanent reminder of the fact that the Democrat Party included lynching as an official plank in its 1924 Chicago Convention. Ignorant, deluded black elites marched for gun control, climate change, amnesty, and Colin Kaepernick. Yet they will not simply stand against the Democrat-sponsored abortion and black genocide underway in their own communities. Margaret Sanger was a eugenicist, a racist, and a monster. Margaret Sanger is the founder of Planned Parenthood. She was committed to the extermination of the Negro race. I just quoted her. I suppose that congratulations are in order. Black celebrities, elites, activists, politicians, and athletes should know that they are members of the same party as Margaret Sanger, the woman whose life's work it was to annihilate black culture. Nice going. Ignorant black elites and others rant and rave about simple voter ID laws that are supposed to suppress the black vote. I submit to you that abortion homicide is arguably the ultimate form of voter suppression. A baby torn apart in the womb will never take his or her first breath, take his or her first steps, let alone cast the first vote. Nevertheless, black elites march arm in arm with the party that champions abortion homicide, in which horrendous numbers of African American children are summarily denied their God-given right to life. These misguided sellouts support the Democrat Party, which in turn provides the political cover under which Planned Parenthood wages a war on the wombs of African American mothers. Removing monuments, digging up hallowed ground, won't change the fact that the Democrat Party is the party of identity politics and hate. The Democrat Party, their apparatchiks in the media, obedient black elites, have used race and hate as tools in which to divide America along the artificial lines commonly known as black and white. We live in a high-definition world, yet there's a tiny, ignorant, and hateful few who insist that we see only in black and white. Removing monuments and statues won't hide the fact that Democrat-run major inner cities have become slaughterhouses. There's an estimated 3,000 to 5,000 members of the KKK in the United States. Yet, in Democrat-run Baltimore and Chicago, respectively, more than 3,000 have been shot and nearly 750 killed. This year alone, in largely black-on-black violence. Consider this. If we can no longer enslave a man with ropes and chains, the next best thing is to use ideology. It is the Democrat Party that uses identity politics, race-based policies, victim ideology, respectively, to re-enslave the African American community and divide this nation along color lines. The unrelenting black-on-black carnage is a direct consequence of decades of Democrat Party and left pimping, promoting, and preaching victimization to the African American community. Stalin said it best, a lie told often enough becomes the truth. Victim ideology conditions men to believe that their complexion, their skin color, the relative pigmentation of their skin defines them. Victim ideology is a damnable lie. Victim ideology indoctrinates individuals to view themselves as victims. A man who sees himself as a victim will see you as a victim. A man who is misled to devalue his own life will place no value on the lives of others. A woman who is indoctrinated to view herself as a victim is robbed, defrauded of the ability to properly value, indeed treasure, the life in her own womb. The Democrats and their victimization narrative has conditioned a generation of young blacks to view one another as targets and rivals, not family and friends. The late Tupac Shakur said it best, it's either him or me. We have the Democrat Party to thank for the lethal, toxic, and corrosive impact that victimization has had on the African American segment of American society. Democrat politicians can remove monuments and statues, but they cannot remove the stain, the national shame resulting from decades of abortion homicide and its genocidal impact on the black community. To the feckless and cowardly politicians, I say this: remove all the relics, artifacts, monuments, and statues, but it changes nothing. It does not change the past. In fact, this missing monument is now the best example and the most visible symbol of political correctness run absolutely amok. Will cowardly politicians remove all monuments devoted to the defeated Confederacy? Who knows? I do know, and what I believe, is that any monument that is removed should be done pursuant to the will of the people and the rule of law, not the knee-jerk, reactionary, unlawful, spineless, and self-serving efforts of politicians. Elected officials who kowtow and cave to the mere hint of mob violence lack the moral fabric and constitutional clarity to lead. Such officials should find and use the last remaining particle of decency to resign. Why stop with the removal of monuments and statues? Why stop with the desecration of the resting places of fallen soldiers? I suggest we uproot the party that started the civil war. I suggest that if Confederate monuments are deemed offensive, the Democrat Party should be even more offensive. I submit that if Confederate monuments and statues offend you, then the Democrat Party, the last remnant of the defeated Confederate States, should offend you even more. For the Democrat Party, the removal of monuments will prove to be a monumental mistake.
Yes, sir.